Hi there, James Shelby here, owner of the Shelby Sold real estate team here in the Temecula Murrieta Valley, and this is an update on what exactly is happening in the market here in the Murrieta Temecula Valley. And the real estate market has been in the news. It's been a hot topic over the last 6 months. Really, let's be honest, it's been a hot topic over the last 2 years, and we're going to get into exactly what is going on in our valley right now. If you have been thinking about moving here to the Temecula Murrieta Valley, whether it's a week from now, 6 months from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, whenever it might be, reach out to me if you have any questions. If you need to know more about the area, I'm always here to help. I've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families right here in the area either buy or sell real estate. And if you're thinking about maybe selling your property here and you need some more insight as to what's going on in the market, or you need some help with that, please feel free to reach out. All my information is below. You can find my phone number and Google me. I always tell people, Google me if you want to know more about me. You can find reviews and there's various other videos on this channel that you can take a look at for more information about the valley. But without further ado, we're going to get into some market statistics that I think you're going to find interesting as to what's been going on here locally. And I'm going to give you some insight from two different angles here. So for the people that like analytics, I know there's some certain people that love to dig into the numbers. I'm going to give you some numbers here. I am not a super analytical person, but I do like to take a look at the data because the data will tell us what's going on in the market. But I'm also going to give you an idea of what's going on in the market just from a feel that I'm getting in the market. I've been selling real estate for 10 years, and throughout the different micro markets that we've seen throughout the last 10 years, when you sell a lot of real estate, you sell real estate at a high volume and you're helping a lot of different people buy and sell real estate, you tend to get these feelings for the market. You tend to get the vibe of which way the market is swinging just based off of solely being in the production every single day, being in the market every single day. There's a lot of agents that, the statistic is, I think the average agent sells about 3 homes a year. It's really tough to get a feel for what's going on in the market. Even if you look at the statistics, and anyone can look at statistics, but if you're not selling real estate at a high volume, it's really tough to really get a vibe or a feel for what's going on. So I'm not only going to give you the data, but as a person that sells a lot of real estate here in Southern California and primarily in Murrieta, Temecula, Menifee area, I really am going to give you some insight as to what I'm seeing from a buyer's perspective, from a seller's perspective, from an investor's perspective. So I think what we'll do is we'll start there, and then if you're really into the numbers, we're going to get into those as we go in further in depth in the video. So first and foremost, in order to know where we're going, we kind of need to know where we've been. So I think we're going to start there. Unless you've kind of been living under a rock, you know that after the pandemic, or mid-pandemic rather, the housing market all over the nation and really even specifically here in Murrieta, Temecula, really skyrocketed. And we really saw this explosion of prices. And this was due to, as you probably already know, low interest rates and low inventory. So the money was very cheap to borrow, which allowed people to offer higher because their monthly payment was lower due to the low interest rate. So they were able to go maybe above in price than they maybe normally would have been when the interest rates were higher. That, coupled with a lot of people making a move at the same time and little inventory, very low inventory. So you had a lot of people bidding on the same houses, thus getting the home driven up in price, and you had this explosion in the prices. And what has happened now, that's kind of a recap as to where we were. Well, what happened in 2022 was the Federal Reserve raised interest rates. The mortgage rates went almost doubled or did double from about 3.5% almost up to, it felt like almost 7% at one point. Now we're hanging around the high fives, low sixes. But what has now happened, and what did happen in early to mid 2002, is things really came to a grinding halt as far as sales, and buyer demand really took a turn for the worse. There was a lot less buyer demand in the market, and home sales really slowed way down. And so what we saw at the latter end, or the later end of 2022, homes were still selling, but they were taking a lot longer to sell, and they were selling for a lot less than they were 6 to 8 to 12 months prior to that. So um, that kind of gives us a recap of where we've been. Where we are right now currently, today is, I believe, January 6th, 2023. And where we are today, this is might be surprising, but we aren't really seeing much of a change off of where we were about a month ago. And I'm going to give you some insight. So what I am starting to see is we are starting to see that the prices have leveled out. But where we are seeing a change is we're starting to see an increase in buyer demand. I'm getting a lot more calls on my listings for showings than I was even 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now that we've entered the new year, I'm starting to see buyer demand. I'm starting to get a lot of my buyer clients that were maybe on the fence or waiting to enter the market until the new year. A lot of them are saying, hey, I'm ready to go. Let's go out and start looking. I just showed about probably 20 homes over the last 72 hours for a couple different clients that were waiting to enter the market. And just like I said, the feel of the market based on other professionals in the industry that I'm speaking with here locally, they're getting the same feeling. So what we're starting to see is a buyer demand is slowly starting to increase. And that's been helped out by rates have come down slowly and come down a little bit. So that has helped. We've also been helped out with some of the loan programs that allow people to do a 3-2 buy down on the rate. So there's a couple things that have been introduced into the loan market that's helping buyer demand as well. And the other thing we're starting to see is prices, and this is where we will get into statistics a little bit. Over the last 6 months in Murrieta and Temecula, the prices have actually come down about 6 to 7%. Sometimes it's been a little higher than that in certain neighborhoods and maybe a little less in others. But, I think there is maybe this misconception due to some of the things that we're hearing in the news, or maybe we're reading online, that the housing market is just completely going to crash or has already crashed. And that has not been the experience that I've been seeing whatsoever. Have some people had to reduce their price in order to get the home sold? Absolutely. That's happened over the last 6 months. But keep in mind, when you are in a market that is exploding, sellers start to think that they can almost put their home for sale for any price, whether it's overpriced or not, and it's going to sell when you're in this crazy market. And we were kind of seeing that. We were seeing sellers asking a high price and getting an even higher price because the demand was so high, the rates were so low, and things were chugging along at a rapid rate. And so a lot of the homes that you saw have to take a big reduction were more than likely homes that were already far overpriced. Then they were brought down to what might have been market value when things kind of completely hit a brick wall mid 2022, late 2022. And then if they were really needing to get moving, they might have to do another price reduction from there just to get homes sold. But on average, the homes that have sold are really only selling for about 5 to 7% off of what they were selling 6 months ago. And if you want to step back and look even further, homes are still selling for quite a bit more money than they were in 2020 or even 2021. I can give you a great example. I had a client going through an unfortunate situation where they needed to sell the property, and they first approached me at the beginning of 2022. And we had sat down and went over kind of what their home was worth, did a full market analysis, and they said, okay, great. Unfortunately, I have to sell this home, but there's a couple things that I need to get done before I sell the home. Well, fast forward 6, 7, 8 months, and they still hadn't sold the home and weren't ready to sell the home. And we had just listed it in December. So from the beginning of 2022, beginning of 2022, when I first spoke with them, to when they finally put the home on the market in December, their home had actually gone up even more in value. Even though the rates had gone up, and even though the buyer demand maybe wasn't as strong, the market statistics and the average price had gone up. So they actually were able to get more money than they would have earlier in 2022. So, but from that point until now, maybe from I would say mid 2022, 6 months till now, prices are down about 5 to 6%. So the buyer demand is starting to increase. I'll give you some more statistics right now. The active listings are actually down quite a bit from where they were 6 months ago, and they've gone down slowly. The inventory has gotten lower slowly over the last 6 months. They're down quite a bit from where inventory was, active listings, from 6 months ago. So I think what's happening is people that do not need to sell, they don't have any real motivation to sell, are not selling. You had some people when the market that was hot that said, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this hot market and I'm going to cash out and I'm just going to rent for a little bit. I'm going to take this money, I'm going to cash out. You had some people say, well, I don't love my home, so I'm going to sell one and get another one, But we're not seeing that now. The only people that are really putting their homes on the market and deciding to sell are people that have to make a move. And the reason for that is if you're locked in to a 3.5% interest rate, you don't really have any motivation to sell your home. Even if you want to buy another home, there's not a lot of strong motivation for people to sell one home where they've got a 3.5% interest rate and go buy a new home, whether it's a bigger home or maybe they're downsizing, and then having to buy a home at a 6% or a 5.5% interest rate. Most people are just going to wait it out and wait for rates to come back down before they make that move. So that's why we're seeing inventory decrease. Not to mention there's been such a negative sentiment in the market for sellers over the last 6 months that things just aren't selling. So they're hearing, well, things aren't selling, so this probably isn't a great time to sell. And in case, again, they have to sell, they're probably not going to sell. So we're seeing buyer demand start to go up a little bit. We're seeing inventory coming down a little bit. So, moving forward, if you are a home seller, and I think this will be the case as we enter into spring, you're going to probably start to see people say, well, this might be a good time to start selling again because buyer demand is increasing, inventory is low. That's good for me as a seller. As a buyer, how is it better? Or how is this going to affect the buyer? Well, from what I'm seeing with buyers right now, that even though inventory is low and buyer demand is starting to increase a little bit, it's nowhere near what it was in this crazy boom that we just had in 2021, early 2022. Yes, buyer demand is starting to creep up a little bit, but for the most part, from what I'm seeing, most homes are not selling in the first weekend, and most homes are not selling high above the list price. In fact, buyers have much more wiggle room. And that's going to bring me to the conclusion here as we round out this video that this is just what I would call a normal market, okay? I think there's a lot of fear because we always have such short-term memories. So we think, okay, well, if the market is not exploding, then that must mean the whole market's crashing. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. The average days on market are up here locally from about 21 days on average to just above 40 days. So the average days on market have doubled. But as someone who sold real estate for a very long period of time, as I mentioned, 10 years, average days on market hanging around 30 to 40 days is a very normal market. I can remember back in 2015, 16, 17, where average days on market was about 45 to 50 days in our area. And there was, when there would be a negotiation, it was much more of a give and take. And that's what we see when things are normal, is that the buyer and the seller, there's a little bit of wiggle room, there's a little bit of negotiation, and that's normal. It is not a normal market when the seller has all of the negotiating power, all of the leverage, because there's so many buyers and so little homes. And frankly, it's not a normal market when there is a flood of buyers, or excuse me, rather, a flood of homes for sale and very little buyers, because now the buyers have all the leverage. And that's kind of what you saw back in 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13, when we had the last crash. And we are not seeing that, nor do I see it trending. In fact, we're trending lower on inventory, even though buyer demand is increasing. So my outlook for the next 6 months is I think we will see the market maintain a flat, unless rates come way down for some reason, which the Fed is not projecting. I think we're going to see prices remain relatively flat. And I still think we'll see this pretty even negotiation between buyer and seller, and that is what you see in a normal market. And to be honest, for someone that does this and helps buyers and sellers, it's kind of a breath of fresh air for everybody to enter into a much more normal market. And I think that's what we'll continue to see throughout the end of the year. So again, if you need anything from me, if you're thinking of buying or selling here locally, or you have questions about the area, feel free to reach out to me. Google me. Below you will find my phone number. We can connect on Instagram or Facebook, whatever works for you. And keep your eye on the channel. Subscribe, like this video. You'll get updates when I have new videos, and we will catch you on the next one.